Okay, so you grab that outer circle, press Shift D twice, or you can just go over, and this is your drawing modes, and we go draw inside. All that really does is turn it into a clipping path.
Okay.
It's the same thing as if you were to take a shape and put it on top of something else and press Command 7, right? It's just kind of a fast way of doing it. So as long as this is selected, we can just put stuff inside. And so right over here in the upper right-hand corner, I'm just going to put a big black thing. So I'm just going to start with like a black shape, okay? And that's obviously too much.
Right.
But before I do anything, I'm going to put a Gaussian blur on it. So go to Blur, Gaussian blur, and then I'm going to try to match this. And that's a pretty significant fade. It goes from like, 1.5 to noon.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to crank this way up. Get that fade going pretty good. Then I'm going to multiply this because it's dark, right? And so the first 3 darken things, the second 3 lighten things, the third 3 do both. Okay, so I'm going to darken that up, and then I'm going to come in and I'm just going to lighten this until it's more subtle. Then I can come in and I can say it's a little bit brighter here on the top. So I'm going to take this circle that I've already got with my black arrow tool, and I'm just going to move it over like this. And then I'm going to change this to be white. And I'm going to apply Gaussian blur to it. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do maybe overlay, maybe a screen. Okay, screen's a little bit brighter, so then I'm just going to take it down to transparency. And now what's happening is those two shapes are fighting over transparency. Mm-hmm. So as you increase or decrease the opacity of one or the other, or put one or the other on top. So if I put this one underneath, you'll see that it gets a little darker because now it's blending down from dark to light. So you can kind of control it like that. The other thing that I'm seeing though is that you've got some ridges that are showing up here, right? Because no matter what I do to this, it's still going to look flat because that's raised. And so I'm going to get out of this by hitting escape. And then I'm going to go over here and go to draw normal again. And see how we did this. So this one here, I'm going to go copy, paste, and behind. So Command C, Command B. I'm going to pull this out while I hold Shift and Alt. Okay, and then I'm going to grab this main color. And let's just put the main color without a stroke. Now I can kind of control how dark or light this is, how much it, whatever. But we'll just put something like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the outside edge here. So I'm actually just going to grab this outside edge, which I'll need to do in the layers palette because it's a clip group now. I just want this ellipse. Make a copy of it. Put it behind. And then I just make that slightly bigger. Okay, and it's starting to kind of build. And then you can kind of see that like along this top edge, there's kind of like a little bit of a bright spot.
Yeah.
So you see like right on that edge.
Yes.
Okay, and that's because the edges of these things are like cylinders. So if we were to look at it, it doesn't do this. Okay, what it does is this. This is like a cross section.
Right.
And so as this turns in direction, it'll catch light.
Okay.
Or it'll catch shadow or whatever, because it's changing direction from this. It's not this plane, it's not this plane. So if I come in here, and one of the things is we need to get your band.
Behind.
Yeah, so we need to get your band behind the face. So we'll put this just behind like that. We'll deal with that in a minute. Okay, so then up here there's like this little highlight that's caught. So you can do one of two things. The easiest thing is we already have a clip group.
Right.
So if I just double click on this, it'll go into isolation mode. And I can grab this edge here and copy, paste, or copy, and then I'll paste, and then I'll go D, that gives me black and white, Shift X, okay, and so now I have this, and I can just bring this up, put it right on that edge, Okay, and it should disappear as it leaves that edge, right? See how it goes away?
Mhm.
So now what we can do is we can just use our line width tool, and I might say it doesn't go very far, so right about here, right about here, and I don't need this one or this one, and I go Shift W, close that off, and I can come in and I can pull this in or out as much as I want. Okay, then just get out of this, get out of that again. Okay, that looks super weird because it's like really bright. And so if we grab it, we can start to blend it again. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go overlay. That looks a little bit better.
Mhm.
Okay, but we might want to like have a little burst there. So we could do one of two things. We could see what happens when we do a Gaussian blur on it. So Gaussian blur. And that's way too much, so we'll kind of crank this way down. Just kind of tighten it up. See how it's stair-stepping?
Mhm.
Yeah. So what we actually need to do is go to Effect, Document Raster Effect Settings, and change this to 300, which it already is. Which means, oh yeah, look how small this is. This is 1 inch. So we need to make the whole thing bigger. There's just not enough. It's vector, but it's also just so small.
Yeah.
It's not really having enough room to pixelate well when it's rendering. So let's hit scale, make sure that we get everything coming with us. Okay. I'm just going to make this much, much larger. Okay, that should be fine. Okay, so now let's zoom back in here. Okay, so now it's still a bit. So let's go check our document raster settings. It's 300, that's great. We want to anti-alias. Okay, so it was the anti-alias that was the problem that time. Now that's one way of doing it.
Okay.
Okay, another way that we could do, and you can mix these, you could do both or either. Somehow I've accidentally clicked more than one path. So let's just grab this one. There we go. So under the appearance panel, I can turn this off if I want. I can turn it on and it'll show up or go away. The other thing we can do is inside of this clip group again, and I'm gonna work outside first, is at the strongest part of this highlight, which I'm gonna put over here. And then I'm gonna shrink this down. I'm going to put another circle, and this circle is going to serve as our kind of specular highlight, the little burst of light. So we're just going to apply a Gaussian blur to it. I need to stop doing that. Come over here, we'll hit preview, crank this down. And I want it to be pretty good in the center and then fuzz it out really hard. So there's kind of a sweet spot there. And you can kind of take it and you can go screen or overlay. Okay, and I like overlay if we're working with the leather.
Yeah.
For this, but I'm gonna leave it on screen and then just turn it down. Okay, and then I just take it and I put it inside of that clip group, and it only happens on the metal. So then when we come back out, that's way too big.
Yeah.
So I can just grab it, come back in, and just shrink it up because I really just want it to be just like a little bit of a burst. It can be any shape that we want it to be, but I just want it to be smaller than that. So kind of just, oops, lost it. Okay, and we might have to go back and adjust the blends. There we go. Grab that. So adjust the, what am I saying? Blur. The blur is what I'm looking for. That's the word. So it might be too much now that we made it smaller. Kind of just gather that together again. Go, okay. Still a little bit much.
Right.
So you just come in and continue to adjust it more and more and more.
Okay.
But you notice how this section, just gonna make that like this. Oops. This section compared to this section,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's starting to kind of pull it out. So you're just gonna continue to kind of coax things out of it.
Right.
Like down at the bottom here, you see like multiple little ridges. That's probably like where the glass is hitting the metal.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd want to put like just multiple little ridges in there. And
So would I want to do like another circle over the top of
the face?
the face and like make it really low transparency?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because that glass, you've sort of done that here, right? Where you have
Right.
this. And actually, this might be a good way to show that. You want something like this, not necessarily, you've got a gradient on it.
Yeah.
It might look a little bit better if you did an opacity mask.
Okay.
And so I'm going to make this whole thing black. And then I'm going to get rid of the white in the center. Okay. So now the whole thing is like that.
Uh-huh.
If you grab this like this, and then you go make mask and click on the mask, you can come in and for like that much of it, let's make a white circle. See, it's only showing up inside of the circle just because of this mask. Where it's white shows up, where it's black it hides. Just like
Okay.
Photoshop. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if it's fuzzy, then it goes gray.
Uh-huh.
And gray is some level of transparency.
Okay.
So if it's a dark gray, it's going to be mostly transparent. If it's a light gray, it's going to be mostly visible.
Okay.
And so if I take that circle that we just made and I apply a Gaussian blur to it, I can control that edge. See how it fuzzed a little bit?
Yeah.
If I crank this super hard, it'll start fading really
Down
nicely.
there. Ah.
And it seems like it's tapering,
Yeah.
but it's not.
It's just blur.
It's just going transparent.
Oh.
Yeah.
So why does that? So, okay. So on that circle,
Mm-hmm.
why does it go outside of the circle with the Gaussian blur?
That's the way the Gaussian blur works. Is it
Oh.
blurs?
Whatever is in that square.
Yeah,
right?
it blurs in either direction from the edge of the shape. So
Oh,
from the path, it'll blur that many pixels in either direction.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Okay, so then we might want to just take this, and you've got a little spot down here, and so we can just. It doesn't matter what shape this is, so I can just come in like this, and I can just say, nope, I want this to be more down here, and it'll kind of bring that down.
Right.
And I could even come in down here and say, give me a little burst of color here, gradient, but let's make it like a 50% gray, and watch what happens down there. It becomes a little bit more transparent because it's gray instead of white, right?
Yeah.
And so it's whatever percentage of gray it is, or however much white
That's
is in
all
there is how transparent it is.
Okay.
So you can kind of do that. And then we can take that same shape that we've already done. We don't need to do anything else to it. So let's get out of our opacity mask. You can get stuck in these opacity masks. So before you do anything else, you've got to click out of it.
Okay.
That's a little tricky. And then let's find where that is. Okay, and I'm going to make a copy of it. And then I'm going to rotate it. Okay, and then I'm going to change the color of it. And it looks like you don't have things perfectly centered. But now we can start, if those were perfectly centered, we can start doing this because it has the same opacity mask.
Uh-huh.
And so you could put like little highlights, change, and it would still use the same opacity mask, and by rotating it just moves the mask into a different spot.
Okay.
So notice we're just getting little subtle things, and I can come in and I can just look and I can say, there's a super bright one, right?
Right.
And your face is white, but this is not white.
That's more of a cream color or
Yeah, so it's-
grayish.
Yeah, or whatever off-white. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. So I can come in here and I can say it's at least off-white.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when I come in with this thin line, I can make this line white. Okay, and it'll start showing up somewhere. Why didn't that one's gray. Where's the one that I just made white? Oh, it's that one. I'm gonna do this way instead. So I'm gonna lock this down and grab this one. I want to make that pure white. Okay, and then I'm just gonna offset it just a little bit so it's not exactly on that black line. And I'm just going to make the stroke a little heavier. So it's super subtle, but now there's like a little bit of white there. You can kind of see it up here. You can kind of see where they're fighting a little bit right there.
Yeah.
So anyway, you just continue to kind of just coax those things out layer to layer